Okay, all right. Let's dive in. Think back with me, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're talking late 90s, maybe early 2000s. That whole vibe. Remember, like, the sound of a VCR rewinding?
Oh, yeah. Or that feeling like rushing home from school.
A desperation. Gotta catch that one block of cartoons, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you were watching anime back then, especially here in the U.S.,
Yeah.
you totally know that feeling. It's powerful.
Yeah, it really holds this, like, personal place for a lot of fans. Deep nostalgia.
It really does. And it was just a completely different world for anime fandom, wasn't it?
Totally.
Not like now where you've got everything on streaming anytime. This was appointment viewing.
You had to be there. Your whole schedule revolved around it. Toonami, maybe Sci-Fi Channel.
Right. And that necessity, well, it kind of created this shared experience, you know?
Mm-hmm.
A specific kind of fandom that's, maybe harder to find today.
Yeah. And we've been looking at some stuff that really, like, brings that time back.
Yeah.
Articles, fan discussions, people sharing these super specific memories. And we even dug into one specific classic series. Its whole kind of wild ride really helps you get why that period feels so special.
Yeah, we've pulled from, like, personal stories about watching, community threads talking about the big nostalgia shows, and then this deep look at Tenchi Muyo, which kind of shows the challenges of getting anime out back then.
Okay, so let's start there with the personal side.
Mm-hmm.
Because reading those accounts, man, some of it just really has home. It sounds like watching anime back then took, like, serious effort.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, one person mentioned watching in the Philippines, right? If you missed an episode,
That was it. Gone.
pretty much, you were just out of the loop, couldn't talk about it the next day.
Yeah.
So watching was directly tied to, like, your social life.
Oh, totally. I remember that. Missing an episode meant you were lost at lunch break. No hitting rewind if you didn't, like, set the VCR just right. And people got physically into it, too, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely. There's mention of, like, yelling out the moves, you know, Kamiha, watching with your siblings or whatever. It wasn't just sitting there passively,
Right.
but that also meant frustration, right? Signal cuts. Right in the middle of a big fight scene, screen just freezes.
Ugh, the worst.
Yeah.
But you just dealt with it.
You had to. There was no alternative, really.
That was your only shot.
Yeah.
And, like, spoilers were already a thing, even then.
Yeah, someone mentioned a friend who got, like, pirated VHS tapes from Japan.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and spoiled stuff way ahead of time. So you see that drive, even back then, to get the content early.
Before torrents and streams.
Exactly. And culturally, things like sharing snacks, waiting for the show. Pansei Canton got a specific shout out that was like peak bonding, apparently.
Huh. I believe it. Food and anime, classic combo. And the dubs, too. They were huge for how people connected.
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Tagalog dub mentioned, adding extra drama. The voice acting, the translation choices, they really shaped how you felt about the show.
Yeah, it wasn't just about understanding, it was the whole experience. It's amazing how tied it all was to the tech and, like, just hanging out back then.
Totally. It wasn't just the show itself. It was the ritual, the shared struggle sometimes, the community.
Okay, so moving from those, like, personal moments, let's talk about the shows themselves. The stuff that actually fuels all this nostalgia. Looking at what people talk about online, you really see the big ones.
Yeah, the variety is pretty cool, actually. You got the obvious giants like Dragon Ball Z. Everyone knows that intro.
Instantly.
But also stuff like City Hunter. Cowboy Bebop people really link that one to late nights, Adult Swim.
Oh, yeah. Essential viewing. And Sailor Moon. For so many people, that was, like, the gateway drug.
Definitely. And it wasn't just Toonami, right? People remember other places.
Right. Sci-Fi Channel's Saturday anime block, that gets mentioned a lot. Shows like Record of Lodoss War,
The Responsible Captain Tyler.
Saint Seiya, The Guyver, El Hazard, Blue Sea. That block was kind of important too.
It really was. It showed people stuff beyond just the big action shows. Fantasy, sci-fi, comedy. And you see other titles pop up too, like Ranma 12, Meizani Koku.
Initial D, my goddess, love Hina. It's a real mix. Shows the different, like, corners of fandom that were forming.
Yeah, and there's this feeling some fans have, you hear it a lot, that the look, the atmosphere of 90s anime is just different, special.
Yeah, like, not necessarily better animation by today's standards maybe, but just a specific aesthetic, a feel.
Exactly. People get nostalgic for tiny details, like the old manga entertainment VHS intros with the KMFDM music.
Oh my god, yes. Or knowing exactly when the intro song for Magical Shopping Arcade, Habanobashi, would hit.
Right. Those little sensory things are huge memory triggers. Even movies like Akira or Venus Wars people saw young. It all taps into that specific vibe. It's clear that 90s aesthetic hits deep for a lot of people.
Okay, so we've got this big picture, right? Influential shows, shared memories. Let's zoom in now, like you said, on one show the sources really unpack. Tenchi Muyo. Big on Toonami, but maybe its legacy is a bit more complicated, maybe not as well known now.
Yeah, Tenchi Muyo gets called a big cult classic. It was definitely popular, especially hitting Toonami around 2000. It aired right alongside huge shows, Dragon Ball Z, Gundam Wing.
And it was kind of important for bringing new stuff to American viewers, right? Like new genres.
Absolutely. It's pointed out as one of the first big exposures for many to the harem anime genre.
Right, the one guy, multiple girls, lots of comedy setup.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it also brought this like wackier slapstick Japanese humor style to a mainstream US kids block.
Which probably opened the door for other shows like it later on.
Yeah, its success definitely helped pave the way. But the fascinating part, and maybe why it kind of faded a bit, is its history. It's incredibly complex, like fractured, not straightforward at all.
Okay, let's try and map this out based on the sources. It didn't start as a TV show.
Nope. It started as OVAs, original video animations.
Like direct-to-video stuff.
Pretty much, yeah. Often higher quality, maybe, but not broad distribution initially. The first one, Tenchi Muyo, Ryo Oki, was back in 92.
And that was the main story, the original.
That's considered the main continuity, yeah.
Yeah.
But things got messy fast. In 95, they launched a TV series, Tenchi Universe.
Okay.
Same basic idea, but it changed the plot, added new characters that became fan favorites, characters who weren't even in the OVAs.
So right away, you've got two different versions floating around. Then movies started happening.
Multiple movies, yeah. And they often tied into different versions. The first movie, Tenchi Muyo in Love, from 96. That followed the Universe TV show.
Okay.
Then another TV series, Tenchi in Tokyo, in 97. Completely separate continuity again.
Wait, a third one. You've got the OVAs, the Universe TV show, the Tokyo TV show, and movies jumping between them. That sounds like a nightmare to follow.
It gets pretty layered. There was the Daughter of Darkness movie in 98, following the first movie. Then Tenchi Forever in 99, which kind of controversially redid the universe ending.
Whoa.
And meanwhile, the original OVA series, Ryoki, it kept going, but like sporadically. Huge gaps. Season 3 wasn't until 2003. Season 4, 2016. Season 5 just finished in 2020.
Massive waits for the original story while all these other versions are popping up and doing their own thing. It's like a spider web, but like contradictory.
Totally. And then you had spin-offs like GXP in 2002, set kind of alongside the OVAs, but with side characters.
Yeah.
Even short promotional stuff, like Tenchi Muyo in 2014.
Wow. Okay. So given all that, had this crazy tangled history across different formats, years, timelines, why did Tenchi Muyo seem to lose steam in the mainstream, after that Toonami boost?
Well, the sources really point to that fractured release history as the main culprit. Unlike Dragon Ball or Sailor Moon, which had maybe a more steady flow or were easier to follow through dubs, Tenchi was just all over the place. There were long stretches with just nothing new easily available for American fans.
So people just kind of lost the thread, moved on to whatever was new and airing consistently.
That seems to be a big part of it.
Yeah.
And one analysis makes a good point. The later Ryo-Oki OVAs got really hard for casual US fans to jump into.
How so?
They started referencing characters or like complex plots from Japanese-only light novels or manga or stuff from the earlier hard-to-find OVAs. It just became too much homework, a barrier.
Trying to follow the quote-unquote main story became this massive research project just to figure out what was going on. Yeah, okay, I can totally see how the momentum would just die off, but there's some effort now to kind of bring Tenchi back, remind people it exists.
Yes, exactly. There's this company, Armature Entertainment, they focus on reviving older stuff. They've got a Kickstarter going. They want to republish the American Tenchi Muyo comics from 1997.
Wait, American comics? So it's another different thing.
Yeah, well, these were original stories made for the U.S. market back then. This particular story arc is called Ryoko's Day. And Petrea Burchard, who voiced Ryoko in the English dub.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's promoting it, saying the art style is like a throwback and a fresh take.
And the idea is, if this does well, maybe more Tenchi could happen.
That seems to be the hope. Burchard mentioned that success here could maybe open the door for like new Tenchi adventures down the line. It's an interesting approach, using this specific piece of American Tenchi history to maybe spark interest again in the whole, complicated beast.
Huh. Okay, so let's connect Tenchi's whole journey back to that bigger picture. The late 90s, early 2000s vibe, the nostalgia. Tenchi's story really shows that Toonami wasn't just about the big action shows, was it?
Not at all. Blocks like Toonami were consciously bringing in a mix. Action, sure, but magical girl, mecha, and like we said, comedy, harem, they were broadening horizons.
And Tenchi Muyo was a huge part of that, introducing that kind of wacky humor, the harem setup, to a young American audience that hadn't seen much like it.
Absolutely. It was a really key piece in building that foundation, expanding what American audiences expected from and wanted from anime.
It really drives home how that whole era was this, like, melting pot, laying the groundwork, even if some shows, like Tenchi, had a really bumpy road because of how complex their history got.
Definitely. So looking back at all those personal memories people shared, the huge list of shows that just scream nostalgia, and then digging into a case like Tenchi Muyo, you really get a sense of how deeply that period shaped anime culture here in the States.
Yeah, these older shows, they weren't just something to watch. They built communities, people worked around the tech limits of the time. It all led to the huge, varied anime world we have now.
And it kind of leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? Thinking about these classics, given how messy some of their histories are, like Tenchi's, and just how many great shows came out then, what does it actually take for an older series from that time to make a real comeback today, to find a whole new audience?
Right. Or is it maybe that the real magic of that era, of those specific shows, does it mostly just live on in that deep personal nostalgia? You know, for the fans who were actually there for the first run, for the Toonami blocks, the VHS tapes, all that shared history.
It's something to chew on, for sure.
Definitely something to think about next time you hear one of those classic OPs and get hit right in the feels.